thank you all for joining us today for this seminar, the topic being assessing the value of your home. And I think most of the people here know me, but in case you're watching later, you don't know who I am. I am Kristen Mason Correas, owner of the Homes by Mason team out of Keller Williams. And I am a top producing realtor in our area. So it looks like someone else is joining us. Let's see, Olga is joining us. So I'm introducing myself, Olga, once you can hear us. And so top producing realtor in the area, top producing realtor in my office of KW United. And I love what I do and I love educating people. I actually was a teacher at one time. It was one of my first jobs out of college many, many, many years ago. So at Homes by Mason, we love educating the consumer and our clients so that you all can be informed and empowered in your decision making when you move forward in your next steps with buying a home or selling a home. So that is a little bit about who I am. And so what questions, again, I've got a presentation prepared that I think are going to answer most of the questions on this topic, but I did want to just put it out there. Are there any burning questions that you all are hoping to get answered today? So either unmute yourself and let me know what those are, or throw them in the chat box. And if there's none, that's fine. Again, I tend to know what a lot of the questions are, so that's what the topics are designed around, but we'll give it another minute. So nothing in the chat box. Anybody want to unmute and let us know? Selling and buying at the same time, Olga. Thank you for throwing that in the chat box. So buying from a new developer. And so I actually have a whole other seminar on buying and selling at the same time. So you might have seen that on the list when you signed up. So we will make sure that we get you into that seminar. And I don't know when it's going to happen yet, but actually we're working on the calendar of our seminars this week. So we will make sure that we get you into that one. This one does focus on assessing the value of your home and what are the factors that impact the value of your home. So that's the main thing we're going to talk about today. And offline, I can have a one-on-one with you if you want on the selling and buying. And again, we'll get you into that other seminar as well. Buying from a new developer, that's also another seminar that we have a topic on. So won't be covered in today's topic, but we'll make sure we connect with you on those topics. Anybody else on assessing the value of your home? Burning questions? All right. So value does not equal price. That is the first thing that I want to say. So when determining the value of your home, it's a judgment. Frankly, value is in the eye of the beholder. You've probably heard that before. And value is really a judgment, right? It's not set in stone. It is, what is the value that I put on something or that you put on something, right? Value is in the eye of the beholder. So that is one of the key things that we have to consider when determining the value of your home, because when you're selling your home, it's going to be in the eye of the buyer, right? So that is largely who is determining the value of your home. Now, before we put it on the market, obviously we need to decide on a price to put it on the market at. So we know some factors that are going to influence what people place value upon. And so we're going to talk about what are those things that most people, see as valuable and how we translate that into a price. So the next slide, I'm going to put it right there out front. A lot of people say, right, what about my Zestimate, right? Online, you all have access to automated estimates. Zillow is one of them, and there's several other sites where you can get an automated estimate of your home. Is that the value of your home? Well, it's a rough ballpark, right? And I'll tell you why as we move forward. Now, the ones that I have here are actually for my home. Okay, so I know my home better than any other home. So, in preparation, I said, let me see what the online estimates say about my home. And you can see the numbers vary, right? From 927, well, actually 866, right? So the lowest one. And this one is actually a a realtor-based platform that we have access to. So this realtor-based platform says that the value is around 866. Down here, you can see 771 to 961. This one, Redfin says that, you know, the value might be up to $1 million. And so 969 here, 927. So they're kind of all over the place, right, on the value there. So that's moderately helpful. And the reason why it's so important to get the price right when you are determining the value of your home is because of this chart here. So this chart tells us that if you hit the market value of a home when you're pricing it, you're going to get the right buyers through the door. Okay, if you hit the top of this triangle where you actually, if you overprice your home, you're not going to get the right buyers through the door. Frankly, you're going to get only a few of the right buyers through the door, which is not going to ideally get you the best results. So that is why it's so important to really try to price your home right and hit the right value. So other questions that people ask are, what about my tax assessment and what about price per square foot? And frankly, in Northern Virginia, this is where I sell, right? So I'm not, it may be different in other parts of the country. In Northern Virginia, we do not typically pay much attention to either one of these things. So you do get a tax assessment on your home every year, and it does not usually match what the market value of your home is. I don't even know what mine is. I don't really look at it. It impacts what you're going to pay in taxes. So frankly, it's better for that to be a lower number, right? Because that's going to impact what you pay in taxes. And when I go to list a home, I don't even think I look at it unless the seller brings my attention to it. Price per square foot, same thing. I do. It's not a number that I calculate. It is not something that really plays out in our market in Northern Virginia. There are many other factors that impact the value of your home. So those are the things that we are going to take into consideration that we're going to look at today, are what are the factors in our Northern Virginia market that impact the value of your home. And so this is kind of an overview here: condition, how it shows, location, market timing, and marketing. That's an overview of what we're going to talk about. First and foremost, location is king. Okay, location, location, location is the most important factor in value in our area. This chart here shows you some research that was done by the NAR, the National Association of Realtors, and what they did here, what the results show is that the closer you are to a metro station in the DC metro area, your price is higher, right? So on the tail end over here is when people are further away from the metro station and their price is higher. So that research bore out. I mean, we kind of know that intuitively, but NAR has the research behind it that shows in our area, and again, it's going to be different if you're looking at a different part of the country, but when you live in an urban area like we do, people do place a lot of value on public transportation and access to the metro. So that is going to typically increase the value of the home. And so there are other factors in regards to location as well. So proximity to other amenities too matter, right? So parks and recreation, retail and restaurants, and schools are other factors that are part of that location that people are considering. So, you know, how close is it to those things? And then of course with schools, what school district is it in? As realtors, that's not something that we are really allowed to talk about, and we can talk about it. We can't talk about the value of a school, okay? But the reality is that buyers do take it into consideration, right? Buyers do look at the school districts and they do factor that in and will often pay more for a home in a school district that is viewed as, or has, you know, is viewed as a good school, or, you know, the general opinion is that it's a good school. So that is something that a lot of buyers do care about and do factor into the value that they place upon a home. And then again, parks and recreation. I mean, I love the outdoors. I like to be outdoors. I like to be around trees and by parks and trails. So again, that's of higher value to me. In general, again, it's going to have value to a lot of people. It's going to have more value to some people than others. And then of course, retail and restaurants. Again, everyone wants to be near them. Some people want to be walking distance to them. So, you know, where you're walking to, if you're if you're walking distance to retail, restaurants, parks and recreation, again, you're probably going to have a higher value on your home. So the other factor about location is, at a glance, is there anything out of the ordinary about your location? And what does the surrounding neighborhood look like? Okay, so when you're headed into your home, right, does the neighborhood look consistent and manicured and well taken care of? Or is a neighborhood that looks inconsistent and some homes are well taken care of and some homes are not, right? So how does that surrounding neighborhood look is going to impact your value. And views. Actually, let me come back to views. So noise and odor and traffic issues, right? So in South Arlington is the best example that I like to use here, that the Aurora Highlands neighborhood is a very popular neighborhood, especially these days, because it's a stone's throw to Amazon HQ too. And yet there's a water treatment facility there, right? So you know what they do at water treatment facilities, right? They clean poopy water. Right? I mean, that's what they do. And there's a stink to it. I used to work over there before I was in real estate. I worked very near to there. And there were times of year in particular where that smell, you could smell it, right? Like nearby, right? We weren't right on top of it. And so that is something, and when I, you know, show clients homes over there, that's something that I'm always going to point out to the buyers. Is it's something that you need to be aware of, because while you might not smell it now, there's a time of year where you're probably going to. And so that is something to take into consideration. If you've got a highway near you and you've got lots of highway noise, if you've got a cell tower near you, right? These are things that can impact the value. So what are your views, right? Especially in a townhome community. So oftentimes townhomes back up to each other. And then some townhomes will back up to a green space. There's a difference in value there, right? People prefer to have more privacy backing up to green space than, you know, having to make sure they always have their blinds down because, you know, their neighbor on the backside can see into their living space. So that's going to have an impact. So again, there's a big picture of location, and then there's small pictures and small implications there in terms of those factors of location. So the reason why I actually have this picture here is this was a beautiful home that we listed. Beautiful, renovated top to bottom, gorgeous renovation, nice big home, big wraparound porch. You can see here, this is part of the wraparound porch, big yard. This was the side yard, and then it had a backyard. And there was a gate. It's right there, actually. There's a gate. When you went through that gate, there was a path to Green Spring Gardens, which is a beautiful garden where they have classes and some people get married there, and lots of people go have photographs taken there. It's a beautiful garden. So they backed up to that. And over here on the other side, there was a car dealership. So out their window of the top floor, you could see the car dealership. So that was kind of a seesaw, right? We had like a positive location factor going on, and then we had a negative location factor going on. And this was on a very small street off of Little River Turnpike. It was a very interesting location, which is why I have this picture. And we did have a hard time. It took us longer to sell this home than most of the homes that we sell. And again, I don't think it was because of the condition of the home, right? It was largely because of our location factors here on this home. So this is another example of how location, in my opinion, factored into the price, okay? So these are two homes in the same community. And this one on the right-hand side, listed for $620, sold for $614. And we listed the one on the left-hand side, listed it for $615 and sold it for $630, which is interesting, right? They listed higher than we did, and we sold for higher than they did. Again, I think there's a couple of factors that went into it. This one's going to come back around, I think, later as well in my presentation. But the one on the right, and it was an end unit too. So this one on the right was an end unit, which oftentimes is favorable and more valuable in the eye of the buyer, but it backed up to a busy road. And then you can see the one on the left, you can see that backed up to this grassy common area with a gazebo. And it was an interior unit. But that back, right, made it feel like you had a backyard, right? So pretty cool. So that, I think, was one of the several factors that impacted the value of this home when we sold it for our clients. So after location, there are factors about the layout and the floor plan, right? So I just mentioned end unit, right? So again, what are the things that people will pay more for, right? What are the things that buyers in our market value in general? And so this is, as a realtor, right, we have the benefit of talking to buyers all the time, right? We're dealing with buyers all the time. They're coming through our open houses all the time. So we have the benefit of hearing directly from the buyers in the market what they find valuable. And so the things that we hear from them that they care about, that they find valuable are, again, if it's a townhome, people prefer end units to interior units. Lots of people want natural light, right? That's one of the reasons why I included this picture here, is this beautiful natural light that's coming into this home. Hands down, if it's a home that doesn't have a lot of natural light or space, that feels dark and dreary, people don't like it as much. And that's going to impact the value. So high ceilings, open layout, that's another reason why I included this picture, because it had both of those things. And so again, some of these things you can't really impact. It's just how your house is. However, in this case, like this little barrier here is something that could have come down. We could have opened up this layout a little bit more by taking that down. So as a seller, you know, there are some things you can do to help the value of your home, and some things that just are what they are. And again, that's part of what we're going to talk about today, is just understand, you know, what you back up to or what you're near and what your neighborhood looks like. You can't necessarily impact those things. And yet there are some other things that you will be able to have an impact on that affect the value of your home. Does it have a garage, right? Most people are going to pay more for a garage, and that's going to increase the value, for example. So those are examples of layout and floor plan. Anyone have any questions before I keep going? I just feel like I've been talking a lot. Okay. So then condition, which is similar to layout, but condition is something, again, that you can impact. The layout you can't. Again, like whether you have a garage or not, right? You have a garage or you don't. And so that, I mean, I guess you could add a garage, but most people are not going to add a garage to increase the value of your home. I mean, again, if you want a garage, put it on for yourself, right? But if you are looking to improve and increase the value of your home, you can do some updates to the condition of the home to improve your value. And for those of you who come to a lot of my seminars, some of these things will be repeats of things you've heard before, but in general, kitchens and baths, okay, are the things that matter most to buyers. So that would be the place that when people make improvements and when people have updated kitchens or baths, that is where you're often going to see an increase in value. Buyers place a lot of value on that. And when you do updates to a home, are those updates neutral or are they personalized? So again, hands down, neutral updates are going to get you the best impact, the best value in your home. If you love purple, you might have heard me tell this story before. I had a client who loved purple and had purple stripes painted in her walkway when you walked into her home, and she had done those purple stripes herself, and they made her happy when she walked in the door. And I said, great, we need to paint those purple stripes a neutral color, because not everyone loves purple, and that's going to bring down the value of your home. Another example, I had a home that had a turquoise dining room. And it wasn't bright, and turquoise is kind of a trendy color these days. So a lot of people like it, and the rest of that, you know, like, so we left the dining room turquoise, and I did have a realtor tell me, I think the clients did come through and look at it, but the realtor told me they almost didn't. They almost didn't come through that home because of the turquoise dining room, which is crazy in my opinion, right? Paint is one of the easiest things to change. But you have to, you know, again, as a realtor, we have to pay attention to what people are saying. And so that is why if you are going to make updates, if you are going to paint, make them as neutral as possible. And as a realtor, we always have recommendations for paint colors, for example. And, you know, when you're doing your bath, I just did 2 bathrooms in my own house, and I did grays, right? You know, I thought about doing some blues and greens, but I went gray. I went neutral because it's going to stand the test of time.
Kristen?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We did have a question. How do you know the amount to invest into your home in terms of, you know, to increase the value, right? How much do you put into a renovation to increase the value?
So that's a great question. And unfortunately, there's not necessarily an easy answer to that. And I always say in real estate, 2 + 2 doesn't always equal 4. Sometimes 2 + 2 equals 5, and sometimes it equals 3. Depending upon the circumstances. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that, because again, there's other factors that influence the value of your home. And so today, this morning, I actually went through a new client of ours home. And what I said to them was, like, you know, walking through the home, and they're like, our bathroom, right? I got to the first bathroom, and they're like, we think we need to do something to this bathroom. And, you know, and our windows are crummy. And so, you know, they want to know, what do they need to do to get the best price for their home? And my answer was, let me walk through the entire home first, right? I need to have the whole picture of your home before I can make recommendations. And then when I make recommendations, it's always about trying to get the best bang for the buck. For my clients. And so in this case, actually, for this particular home that I walked through today, they had a spare room downstairs that was unfinished. It had doors to it. So they had a rec room, and then they had pretty glass doors on this room, but then it was an unfinished room, and there were windows in that room too. And I said, this is where I think we need to put some money. Windows, yes, like, windows are expensive, and so to sell your home, you're not necessarily going to get the money back for buying new windows. And so, and yet I said, we could finish off this room. Drywall isn't that expensive, right? We could finish off this room and have a really big impact. I think that was, you know, that was my recommendation to them, is to have a better impact, a bigger impact, better bang for their buck to finish off that room than to do windows. And in the bathrooms, in their case, because we're going to spend some money in that spare room, we're not going to spend a whole lot of money in their bathrooms. We are going to probably do some things, some cosmetic upgrades to that bathroom, just to give it a little more fresh feel to it. But again, my goal is always to keep as much money in my client's pocket as possible. So that's how I view it. And I'm always saying, where can we get the best bang for the buck? So that's a long answer to your question. And happy to do a one-on-one with you, Olga, to come through the home and give you, you know, one-on-one opinion on your situation. So let me keep going and talk about the other factors. And then, you know, again, that might help answer the other questions too. So delayed maintenance, that was another thing that came up today. So they had an HVAC system that was 13 years old, which is not at the end of its life, but it was having an issue. And they had just had it looked at, and they're like, it's going to cost us $1,000 to repair it or $3,500 to replace it. And I said, because it's not at the end of its life, yes, get it repaired, spend that $1,000 to repair it, but it's not at the end of its life. So I don't think you need to replace it. So if something is at the end of its life, of a roof, right, the big ticket items, roof and HVAC are the big ticket items. So if they're at the end of its life, you might want to do that. And yet it depends upon what's going on in the market. So that's another piece of the puzzle that I'm going to talk about here shortly. So your listing price is not always going to be the same thing as your sales price. So again, we're talking about value. So we want to determine the value of your home. And then once we have an opinion of the value of your home, we're going to determine what a listing price or an asking price is if we're going to put it on the market. And then there's going to be a sales price is the final price that you get for the home. So they don't always equal the same thing for several reasons. So you put your home on the market initially, and then the market conditions we're going to talk about here shortly. So that's another big factor in terms of the value of the home. And then there's also a home inspection and an appraisal. And those are two other places that may impact what your final sales price is. It may change based upon what comes up in the home inspection or the appraisal. So how it shows to people, this is part of the market conditions, right? So how do buyers respond to your home? Because as we talked about in the beginning, the value is going to be really in the eyes of the buyers. So what do the buyers think, right? What are the buyers willing to pay, right? We can put an asking price on it, but what are the buyers willing to pay you for your home is going to be your sales price, your final price, with some of those other things factored in. So what they're willing to pay for your home is impacted by some of these things here. How does it make them feel? People remember how they feel more than anything else. They might not remember if it was a gray or a beige on the wall, right? They might not remember the color of the carpet, but how did they feel, right? Did it feel comfy and cozy? Did it feel like a place where they want to be with their family and friends and entertaining, right? So that's one of the reasons why staging is so important, which my next slides are going to be on. And also, again, does it feel clean and fresh and neutral? Or again, are there odors? So, we talked about odors outside the home, odors inside the home as well. It can be an issue. So, because that's something that you might not be able to get out if it's inside the home, right? So that is something that's going to stick with people. And again, it doesn't feel fresh and clean if there's an odor to it. Can they picture themselves there? That is why we ask people to declutter and depersonalize. Depersonalizing is always the first step in the staging process, because we want people to be able to picture themselves there. And if they're looking at pictures of you and your family and your friends, and it's harder to picture themselves there. And then the features that we talked about earlier, right? The natural light, the high ceilings, the open layout. Are we highlighting those things, right? Do we show those things off? Where your furniture is placed can impact, whether people feel and notice the light and the open floor plan. So again, that goes to why we do staging. Okay, so staging, and you know what, I just decided I should probably put a slide in here. There's again research done by, I think it was the National Association of Realtors again, that did the research on staging, and their research did show us that buyers are willing to pay more. They do end up paying more, when a home is staged. That's the results that we got, when they did the research. And so here are some before and after pictures of homes that we have listed at Homes by Mason and that we've staged. So in this case, again, you've got this beautiful window here that brings in lots of natural light. And the green paint was like sucking up a lot of that light, right? So we neutralized the walls with a lighter paint, and we moved the furniture because, again, on the left, right, you were walking into this big sofa when you walked into the room. And so then when we moved the furniture, now it feels more open. And again, the focus is now on that window. So, a little bit of staging can go a long way in terms of impacting how the buyers feel when they come through a home. So again, on the left here, this feels like a dorm room, right? Or a storage room. And so we took all of that stuff out and we made it feel like a guest room, right? This was a lower level room. We staged it like a guest room. It feels inviting and welcoming for guests. So same thing on the left. This is how people live, right? I mean, again, like my house doesn't look too different than this house, frankly, most days. This is how we live. And this is how we show a home, right? So we want to show it to give the feeling that this is how we want to live, right? We want to live this way. And so that's how we show it. So we move a lot of the stuff out. Again, we painted walls here. We take down curtains and things like that to bring in the light and to minimize and show off these beautiful hardwood floors too, right? So they had carpet on the left. And we took out that carpet and just put in, a smaller rug to show off those hardwood floors. So those are some examples there. And again, here, look at, these heavy curtains on the left, with these, big, tall windows. And so we did leave, I guess, shears here in this case, but lightened up the room. Again, hardwood floors we exposed here by pulling up carpet and again, have a nice open flow with the staging that we did here. So it is actually the market that determines the sales price of the home. So the buyers in the market we've talked about and how they react. And then there's just overall market activity, which you may have heard a little bit about what's going on in our market these days. It is a pretty hot and heavy market right now in Northern Virginia, and actually throughout the United States. We are hearing that throughout the country, frankly, there's not a lot of inventory and there's a lot of buyer demand right now because interest rates are so low. So with interest rates being so low, that has caused a lot of buyer demand. And for whatever reason, there's not a lot of sellers selling. It may also be related to low interest rates because sellers have been able to refinance and get into low interest rates. And so sellers, have the benefit of lower interest rates and not wanting to move. So that it may be a double-edged sword, those low interest rates. But the fact of the matter is, we have to pay attention to what is happening in the market to determine what the value of your home is when it is time to list your home. Because I said earlier, right, 2 + 2 sometimes equals 5 and 2 + 2 sometimes equals 3. Because if I sell your home at a certain time of year, it might sell for this. And if I sell your home at a different time of year, it might sell for that. And that's what this chart gives you an idea of. So this is a typical how the market typically trends. Okay, so we watch this every month. This is from the Northern Virginia Association of Realtor statistics. And so we watch this. I've been doing this now for 11 years. And for 11 years, I watch how the market trends. And this is how it trends. So typically, we hit a bottom in terms of prices. This purple line here is price of home. So the prices tend to be the lowest at the end of the year. And then they tend to start to go up. This time of year, the prices are going up and they tend to peak every year in June. These are closed sales and closed prices. So realize that if when they close in June, they went under contract in either April or May, because it takes 30 to 45 days to close on a home. So again, you can see it peaked in June here, it peaked in June here. And again, I know this chart's a little bit out of date. I knew that. I didn't worry about changing it because we're still seeing the same trends. Every year we see the same trends. But the highest price we tend to see in June, which means they went in under contract in April or May. That's why there's kind of this idea, right? Spring is the best time to sell. Spring is the best time to sell. I don't frankly totally agree with that. I mean, yes, the stats here do show you that is when you tend to sell at the highest price. However, the blue bars show you the number of sales. So when you're talking about competition, right, as a seller, everybody wants to try to hit that peak, right? So if you're coming on the market and your next door neighbor is coming on the market and your neighbor on the corner is coming on the market, well, now you have to compete against them as well. And if their homes are better than yours, or if their homes are priced lower than yours, guess who wins? They do, right? So this is why market timing is another thing that impacts value of your home, and pricing strategy is one of the things we're going to talk about here, is that I do want to be on an upswing when I'm listing homes. I like to, be at a time of year when prices are going up. So I prefer, frankly, this time of year right now, right? When prices are going up is when I like to be listing a home, because the prices are going up and you have a little less competition this time of year. So that, I think I covered all of these points here on this slide. How's inventory and demand? What's the season? Are there economic factors to consider? So in our area in Northern Virginia, right, politics are a big factor in our market as well. So historically, every year, whenever there's a presidential election, our market slows down, usually right around the presidential election, because there's a whole bunch of people who are not sure if they're going to have a job or not after the election. And so that's always, again, that's a 4-year cycle that we'll see that the market will slow down around the election. And then if you remember a couple of years back when, this happens, every once in a while, our government shuts down, right? And because so many people in our area work for the government, when the government shuts down, guess what happens? Our buyer activity shuts down. Mm-hmm. So that's another economic factor that's going on in the market that could impact the value and the sales price of your home. So I told you earlier, so that townhome, so this is that townhome that I showed you earlier. Remember, this was the end unit that backed up to the road, and this was the interior unit that backed up to the gazebo. This was around the time of a government shutdown. So my client here was this one on the left, and when I met with him, it was January when the government was shut down. And we made a conscious decision and this one was on the market at that time. Okay, so this one had already been listed for 620, and it was sitting. And we're like, it's sitting because the government is shut down. There's less buyers out there. So we made a decision over here to wait a couple of weeks. Again, they had listed here the 2nd of February. So we listed a month later in March. And again, like they listed for 620 and sold for 614. We listed for 615 and sold for 630. A $16,000 difference, right? So the value of your home is not just about what's inside your 4 walls, okay? It is also about what's happening in the market and what the buyers care about and all of those things. And timing the market, it can be, should be part of what you think about when you're trying to maximize the value of your home. And so pricing strategy, right? So that's the other piece here, is that as a realtor, I think through all of these things that we've just talked about, right? So I think through, all of those factors, location, condition, how it's going to show, the staging. I think, what do I think the value is of the home? And then the next question is, okay, well, what's the right price based upon that, based upon what's happening in the market? And there's kind of 3 strategies that we often will consider. I generally always try to right price the home. However, sometimes I might choose a different strategy. So the 2 other strategies would be an aggressive price or a competitive price. So an aggressive price would be, again, if we are on that upward cycle and we know prices are going up, then we might say, okay, your neighbor sold for this price and prices are going up right now. So we can maybe try to price it higher, right? And kind of go higher than what we really think that right price is. That can sometimes backfire. Because if you don't hit it right, that triangle that I showed you in the beginning, if you don't hit it right, you're not getting the right people through the door. Again, it's a buyer who's going to buy your home. We need lots of buyers to come through your door, and ideally lots of offers, right? More offers tend to escalate above asking price, which is what we get when we do a competitive price strategy. So a competitive price strategy would be, okay, we think the value is here. We might price it a little bit lower than what we think the right price is in order to purposefully drive in more traffic and drive in more offers to your home, hopefully escalating it well above our asking price. Now, the right price should also do that. Okay, so if we hit the right price, we hopefully as well, you know, get lots of buyers through the door and get multiple offers. Then there's pricing and brackets is the one other thing that I actually don't have on this slide, but that, so if we think the right price of your home is say like $660, in that case, I might say, well, $650 is a better pricing strategy because buyers tend to search in price brackets, right? They tend to search up to $625 or up to $650 or up to $675, right? We know that those are kind of the brackets they search in. So if you're at $660, all of the people who stop searching at $650 are not going to see your home, right? And so if we think it's worth $660, but if we price it at $650, you're probably going to get $660 or more because we're going to get more people, right? All of those buyers who are only looking up to $650 who see your home and get really excited about your home, then decide, yeah, they'll pay $660 for it. So hopefully that makes some sense. And in regards to pricing strategy, one of the points I have here is ultimately the seller decides. You know, again, you all are here to educate yourself about what impacts the value of your home. And when we work with a client, we're going to do the same thing and, you know, talk to you about, you know, what we see in the home and what our opinion of the value and the price is. Ultimately, it's your decision. So just remember, and then here's, you know, that the final sales price is not always going to match what that initial price is, and it can go one way or the other, right? So the appraisal is a big factor. So when I'm pricing a home, when I'm determining the value of a home, I'm thinking about what is the value in the eyes of the buyer. And I'm also thinking about what is the value in the eyes of an appraiser. Okay, because someone could come and say they'll pay $2 million for my home. You saw the estimates of my home earlier, right? My home is not worth $2 million. But someone came along and said they're going to, you know, pay $2 million. And if that someone's getting financing, it's not going to appraise for $2 million. So like, woohoo, I think I'm getting 2 million. No, I'm not getting 2 million because it can't appraise for that. Okay. So same thing with different numbers, right? You know, again, use the 650 and 700, right? If we think the value is 650 and, you know, someone offers 700, and if there's not support in the market, if there's not comparable sales that can support a final price of 700, then even though they've offered you 700, if the appraisal doesn't come in, you're not going to get that, unfortunately. So we have to consider what's the value in the eyes of the buyer and what is an appraiser going to appraise it at. And so they're going to look at the comps, right? So the comps do matter. Comps is short for comparable sales, right? So so we always have to take that into consideration as well, right? And we have to look at those comparable sales with a discerning eye because of all of these other factors that I talked about. So ideally, the best comps are going to be from the same community, right? We want it to be as alike as possible. We want to ideally have apples to apples. It's hard to get apples to apples, but if we can get apples to apples, that's what we want. And, you know, as close to that as possible is what an appraiser is searching for. So ideally from the same community, if not the same community, they're going to, you know, go out maybe a mile. They're not often going to go out further than that. They might have to in certain circumstances, but generally same neighborhood or a mile is where they're looking for comps. Ideally within the last 90 to 180 days, right? So oftentimes people will come to me and say, my neighbor sold their home, you know, last year for this much. Well, unfortunately, last year is not usually going to be a comp, right? It's really 90 days because the market changes so much, right? So as we've talked about, the market matters a lot in terms of value of the home. So in our area, the good news is generally our market is increasing. So if it sold, you know, something sold last year, generally, hopefully we're selling for more, but then there's also all those other factors, right? Just because your neighbor's home sold for such and such price at such and such time, what was the location? What was the condition? How did it show, right? And what did the realtor do as well is going to be one of the last things that we're going to talk about. So, so the last 90 days, ideally, again, they'll go out 180 days if they need to, but ideally they want comparable sales from the last 90 days. And ideally they want those homes to be the same model, if it can be. If not the same model, the same square footage, right? Same style of home. So a Rambler is different than a Colonial, right? Buyers place different values on the styles of home. I love Ramblers. I own 2 Ramblers, right? That's what I like, and that's what I live in. But again, most buyers like Colonials or Craftsman. A lot of buyers don't like split levels. I also like split levels, but a lot of buyers don't. So that can impact value as well, right? So an appraiser knows that. So an appraiser may, give more value when they're appraising to a Colonial versus a Rambler. So they have to make adjustments when they appraise because they can't find apples to apples. But again, and so that's also what, if you're trying to look at the comps, and when I'm looking at the comps, I have to consider those things as well. That, we might, these other styles of homes, if the home is newer, right, they get more points than we do. So again, so this is what I was just talking about there. Location, style, model, the size of the home, both inside and out. So the square footage of a home and the square footage of the lot. So a lot size also can have an impact on the value of a home. Average lot size in our area out here, kind of in the suburbs, is like a 1/4 of an acre lot. Closer in, the lots often are smaller than that. So again, so if you have a larger than average lot size, that certainly can have an impact, a positive impact on your value. However, if that lot is not terribly usable, right? Like I often, Haywood Glen, this neighborhood that you've got up here, right? It's a hilly neighborhood. And so some of those homes just drop off in the back. So while it might be a large lot, if the lot is not terribly usable, then again, you're doing this with value, like we did before with backing up to the garden and backing up to a car dealership. They might cancel each other out a little bit. So, and so when you look at comps, when you're, looking at what homes in your neighborhood have sold for, just remember that again, even if you are in the same neighborhood, it's not always going to be apples to apples, right? There's a lot of these other factors that play a part in what the value of the home is. In this case, these 2 homes in the same neighborhood sold. I actually listed both of these homes, and these are the same model in the same neighborhood, and they sold about $30,000 apart, I think. One of them was on a cul-de-sac, one of them was on a cut-through street. The yards were very different. The condition was very different, even though it was the same model in the same neighborhood. So, and then just a reminder that, again, there's that home inspection piece, right? So sometimes you'll have an asking price and you'll get under contract, and then there may be a home inspection. And so that's where in the home inspection, they might find out that the roof is at the end of its life and the HVAC is at the end of its life. If they find out those things in a home inspection, they might come back and say, my opinion of the value of your home has changed because I now realize that I need to put in $10,000 to $20,000 or more to this home. So they may, and there's then oftentimes, although in this market, not so much, but in a normal market, they'll have an opportunity to either walk away from your home or renegotiate the price after a home inspection. So having a strong realtor on your side who knows what to expect, knows what objections to expect, right? So going into pricing your home, again, it's good to consider what are the age of these things? What are the things that might come up in home inspection? And so while you might not need to deal with it up front, right? We're not going to usually ask you to put a new roof on. We're not usually going to ask you to put a new HVAC in, but we want to have that information so we know that. So when we get to a home inspection, we're prepared for how to handle that. With old systems, we would probably recommend actually just putting a home warranty on the property, for example, because a home warranty will repair or replace those items for a deductible. So that's usually how we handle an old system, for example. And again, if we know that your roof is at the end of its life, we may adjust for the price in that. And then when they come back later and say, oh, the roof is old, we're going to say, yeah, we knew that. We priced accordingly for that. So how your realtor handles negotiations can impact the final sales price of your home. And then the other piece, another piece that's important for what the realtor does for you is, do they show the value, right? So all of these things that I've talked about today are items that can add value to your home, right? The proximity to amenities in your location is a huge part of the value. And when I first got into this business, I was like, and for a long time, right? All you saw when you looked at homes online was house photo, house photo, house photo, right? Outside, inside, yard, right? Outside, inside, yard. That's usually what you saw in the photos. And we at Homes by Mason, I tell people all the time, I'm like, we don't just sell what's inside your four walls. We are going to sell the location, the community as well, because they can update a bathroom, they can change the colors on the walls, but they can't pick up and move your home. So in my opinion and my experience, that is a huge part of the value. And I would be doing a disservice to my clients, in my opinion, if I did not market heavily the location and community features and benefits of your home. So that's a big part of what we do. We have a community binder. In all of our marketing pieces, we're not just talking about how many bedrooms and bathrooms you have and whether they're updated, but we're also talking about what is nearby. If there's a park nearby, if there's a pool nearby, how close you are to, popular areas, Old Town Delray, Shirlington, these things. So knowing the neighborhood and the community, in my opinion, again, is really important. And if a realtor doesn't know it, automatically making sure they're willing to do that homework and do that research to not only sell what's inside the four walls, but also have that whole package to show the value of the community as well. And so generating traffic, right, is a realtor able to generate the feet through the door? Like I said, the more buyers you get through the door, the higher your final sales price is going to be, probably. So what is a realtor doing? An average realtor will put a sign in the yard, put it in the MLS, and pray someone else sells it. So there's a lot more. And people sometimes say, well, what else can you do? We start marketing the properties before it's on the market. So we have a whole coming soon strategy. So our coming soon strategy, our goal there is to line people up at the door. So when we open the doors, right, when we actually do go live on the market, ideally we have a line of people because we've started marketing before it hits. And so there's several places that we market beforehand. Open houses, a lot of realtors will say open houses don't work. That's convenient for people to say. I'd love to spend more time at home with my family on the weekends. And that's what a lot of realtors who aren't doing open houses are doing. We do open houses because they work and because it's our job to get the highest possible price for our clients. So therefore we want to get the most people through the door. So we do open houses not just on Sunday. I mean, the first weekend on the market, we do a Friday night, a Saturday, and a Sunday open house on the first weekend. Because again, we want to get people through the door of the home. Professional photos is another thing. I can't believe some realtors are not doing professional photos. I mean, again, in this day and age where everyone is starting their search online, the photos online are really people's first impression of the home. And if they don't like what they see online, they're not going to come see it, right? Remember, I told you about the turquoise dining room, right? Someone almost didn't come because of the turquoise dining room. If they can't see the home well because the pictures are horrible, because a realtor took them by themselves on their, phone, that is a disservice to clients, in my opinion. You should be getting professional photos of your home. That is something a realtor should be providing for you. Being prepared to overcome objections. So supporting the appraisal we talked about, right? So again, I guess those are the last two pieces. Overcoming objections. So again, when we prepare a home for the market, I mentioned it earlier, right? We want to know what are the possible objections people might have? What are the possible issues that might come up so that we're prepared to address those, right? We don't want to be hit with surprises. We don't want people to come at us later and say, the home is not worth this because of this. So being prepared to overcome any objections about a home and then supporting that appraisal. So there's actually a myth out there in the real estate world that realtors cannot talk to appraisers. Another convenient myth. That is not true. So I meet the appraiser every single time. And I meet the appraiser with a packet of information to give them the information that I want them to see, that I believe supports that price for that home, right? Again, we've got an asking price, especially if someone has given us more than what our asking price is. Even more important for me to be there to meet the appraiser to say, here's the information that, you know, helps support the price that we have on this home. So again, most realtors don't talk about that as part of what they do often. And again, a lot of them don't think they can meet the appraiser. Not true. I meet them every single time. I believe it is one of the most important parts of my job, especially when we are selling homes higher than other homes. We've got to support that. If it doesn't appraise, you're not going to get that price. Mm-hmm. So these days we're fortunate that we're getting a lot of contracts with no appraisal contingency. And that's part of, again, what the market conditions is happening right now. The market is so hot right now that we're often getting tons of offers with very few contingencies. And again, the more that we do of all of this stuff, the more buyers will get through the door, the more offers we'll get, the higher the price will be. So here's one example that I'll share with you, and then I'm going to wrap up. This is two homes that were in the same neighborhood. Beauregard Heights is a neighborhood I sell a lot, and they were listed like a week apart, right? So listed August 2nd here on the right and August 15th. So, 13 days apart, 2 weeks. Yep, 2 weeks apart. And they were, look at the address, 718 and 712. They were doors apart from each other. Okay, I listed this one on the left. We listed it, okay, so I don't have my listing price on here, but so I listed this one on the left, and it was an end unit. So being an end unit may give it a little more value. This was an interior unit. Doors apart, 2 weeks apart, these were listed. And we sold, and again, it's the location, right? It's the same neighborhood, very close to each other. Basically, they back up to the same things, essentially. Mine, while it was an end unit, actually was a little bit closer to the parking lot, which some people might like being closer to the parking lot. Some people might not like being closer to the parking lot. $35,000 difference. And it's the same floor plan. That's the other thing. So you'll see that here, right? So it's kind of a unique floor plan for that neighborhood, actually. It's got this split level floor plan. So same floor plan. Yes, we had hardwood floors, they had carpet. And the kitchen, right? So we had a better kitchen on the left-hand side. And this one was the original cabinets painted kitchen. So there's a better kitchen. This was the master baths, right? So again, this is a basic bathroom update, something that we might, again, we might recommend our clients to do something like this. And this on the left, they had renovated it for themselves. So it was a nice bathroom renovation. Here, this doesn't look too terribly different, right? The dining rooms. And again, the backs, pretty much the same. The one on the right had this big tree in it, so that kind of ate up some of the patio space. And this is the lower level. Again, very much the same, right? Same model. They both have, good natural light down there, and they both have a fireplace. And so again, a $35,000 difference on those two homes that were very similar. And so some of the factors that I talked about played into that. In this case, right, it wasn't necessarily location. The location was the same. It wasn't the floor plan or the layout, because that was the same. In this case, it was condition was part of it, right? And I would argue, what we did to get people through the door. This is a neighborhood we sell a lot. Again, all that we do. And this neighborhood, a lot of people don't know. And so an objection in this neighborhood, for example, these are condo townhomes, which people don't expect. People expect townhomes to have an HOA, a small HOA fee. These ones have like $330 monthly condo fees. I know that. I go into this sale knowing that people are not going to like that $330 condo fee. So I need to be prepared to explain to people why there is that condo fee and what they get for it, and answer it up front so that it doesn't become an objection or a reason why people don't buy it. And again, this is a neighborhood where, you know, I think it's a fantastic location. It's near, you know, the nature trail, and it's near shops. It's near 395. It's next door to a neighborhood that I lived in. Again, I sell a lot here, so I can speak at length and enthusiastically about this location in this neighborhood. So I would argue that that is also a reason why we were able to get $35,000 more for this.
Olga wants to know if it's necessary to get different appraisals.
So that's an interesting question. So the way an appraisal works is, as a homeowner, you can get an appraisal on your home. So an official appraisal is done by a licensed appraiser. Okay, so there's licensed appraisers who basically work for the benefit of lenders. Essentially, when a lender is going to give a big check on a loan, if they're going to give a loan on a home, they're going to hire a licensed appraiser to assess the value of that home for them, to make sure that they're making a good investment. So in the context of selling a home, and in the context of a buyer getting a home with a loan, they are going to most of the time be required to get an appraisal as part of that process. Now, as a homeowner, you can also hire a licensed appraiser to do an appraisal of your home. And so you can choose to do that, or you can have a realtor come through your home. We are not licensed appraisers, so, you know, and then I can give you my opinion of the value of your home. And again, I'm thinking like an appraiser. I know what's important to an appraiser. I'm not a licensed appraiser. So you can get a couple of different opinions on the value of your home in whichever way you choose to, right? You could hire a licensed appraiser, or you could talk to a couple of realtors. And if you miss, you might, I don't know if you saw the slide in the beginning, right? Online, there are different places where you can get an estimate of the value of your home. So here's an example, right? So this is a site that we have through Homes by Mason. So you can come to this site if you're curious about the value of your home, and plug in your address and what we would do at Homes. And then our next question when you do this at Homes by Mason is, we say, okay, do you want a generic valuation or do you want a specific valuation? So if you just want a generic valuation, we can run, again, an automated estimate and spit out a report that's based upon public information. It's not as good as having someone come through your home. So that's where, to get the best valuation of your home, you want to have someone come through your home, either a licensed appraiser or a licensed realtor, to come through and give you your opinion of your home. So hopefully that answers the question. I mean, you know, it's up to you. Great. Okay, good. I see. Got it. Thanks. And again, I guess the last thing I would say on that is that this is more art than science, right? So hopefully that kind of came through in today's presentation. You know, I said before, 2 + 2 sometimes equals 5 and sometimes it equals 3. That is the world that I live in, right? It's a lot of gray, right? There's not, you know, there's some things are black and white, I guess, in our world, but in terms of value and assessment, it's not black and white, right? We've got to look at all of these factors, and we've got to, you know, come up with an opinion of the price. And again, I think that if people are not considering what's happening in the market and at what time, you know, so again, like you might ask me for an assessment of your home now, and I can say, okay, well, based upon what's happening in the market right now, this is my opinion. But then if you go to sell your home in November, it may be a different opinion. Right? It may be a different price at that time, because now we have to look at what's happened to the market and what's the market doing at that time. So it's, you know, unfortunately not a science, more art. It's a good thing I'm good at this art, because I'm not great at real art. This other questions? So I will hang out for a little bit if you do have more questions. Again, Olga, thank you for putting your notes in the chat. You can also unmute yourself if you want. We are a relatively small group here. And again, as I have up on the screen here, I am happy to do a no cost, no obligation, either in person or virtual kind of walkthrough of your home to help you determine the value of your home. It's obviously best to do it in person, and we are taking precautions these days during COVID. I mentioned, anytime we go out, I'm double masking these days. I'm using gloves and taking all the proper precautions in order to do the work that we do for people. And so thank you for coming. Again, there's a slide about who I am, again, in case you don't know me. And
hi, Kristen. My name is Larry Pedrick. I'm Olga's husband. I had a just quick last minute question. You touched on this earlier, and sorry, I know you were wrapping up, but
no worries.
Is there a formula that you use for determining if a upgrade, repair, or renovation should happen before the sale, or just let the buyer know that, or let the buyer determine whether they want to renovate or upgrade something?
So is there a formula, right? So Olga asked this question earlier, right? And I kind of,
well, I know it's not science, it's art. So yeah, maybe not a formula, but.
So, well, and again, so it's hard to answer that question. What my answer was at that time, right? Anyone can jump in, because right, I think, I want to look at the whole picture, right?
Yeah.
If you tell me so again, the best example I have is where I was this morning, right? So I have a new client whose house I walked through this morning. Before I walked into their home, they said to me, we are worried about our yard and we've got crummy windows. And, I think those are two of their main concerns, right? So I walked in the door knowing that. I'm like, okay, they want to know if they need to replace their windows. And oh, by the way, again, their HVAC was 13 years old. So I know these things. And I said, let me walk through your entire home before I can give you an opinion, right? I need to see it all, right? I need to see the location factors. I need to see all of the condition of all of the things about your home. And then I'm going to form my opinion, because I'm going to think about what matters most to the buyers. My goal with my clients is to keep the most money in your pocket as possible. Mm-hmm. Now, right. Sometimes we all know, right? So sometimes you've got to spend money to make money, unfortunately. Well, again, usually it works out, right? Hopefully we can do that in a way that it works out for you. So that's the other piece of my puzzle is, if I'm asking people to spend money, it's because, in my opinion, it is going to have a return on that investment.
Right.
And I want it to always get the best bang for the buck. So in the example that I gave earlier and from this morning, windows are really expensive, right? And so, yeah, it'd be nice to do new windows. A new buyer would love new windows, but frankly, buyers are pretty superficial. So buyers care more about kitchens and baths. That's the fact of the matter, right?
Yeah.
They'll buy a home with older windows and just, decide, okay, I'm going to have to do this at some point, budget it in.
Right.
But they like to move into a home that they feel good about, right? That, that feels updated, right? The windows, there's not a feel good about windows, for example, right?
So this would be assuming that repairs are an absolute. You can't have broken things, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
But now you're presented with the question of, you have a kitchen that is in need of some repairs and update. Do you go with, let's just repair, or repair and update and maybe put new counters, new cabinet fronts? Or do you go with dream kitchen and totally renovate if you're thinking about selling?
Right. So these are the questions, right, that are important to ask. And so I have another seminar that I do that's on preparing your home for sale that kind of touches on some of the stuff. And what I usually say in that one is, if you want to do it for yourself, right, if you're far enough off from selling,
mm-hmm.
you want to do it for yourself, do it for yourself. Because a lot of times I work with people who do something to sell, and then they're like, why didn't I do this sooner? It looks so great,
yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, I didn't get to take advantage of it. And so, yeah, if you're a ways off, do it, and you know that it needs some work, then maybe do it for yourself. And when you're doing it, again, maybe don't buy the marble tile like I did for my bathroom, right? Because I'm not planning on selling, right? And I just picked what I liked, and it was kind of expensive. And I'm like, you know what? I work hard for my money. Like, I'm going to put, that's what I want. So I put it in. If you're doing it to sell, you don't pick the most expensive stuff. You do the subway tile versus the marble tile.
Right.
And so again, so if you're doing it for yourself and you're going to sell, then you maybe balance that, right? It's like, okay, subway tile is nice, right? Like, so, you do, make the affordable choices, so again, if I think it's smart to make affordable choices. And so part of what I do too, and again, happy to do this with you all, if you want to schedule a time, let me know. You can, we should have your contact information when you registered. And so I'll do like a renovation consultation is another thing that I'll do for people. Like I've got clients who, Sarah, for example, who's here today, I helped her buy her home. And then, every once in a while I go into the home, I went to her home. It was probably 2 years ago, a year and a half, 2 years ago, when I went through her home to talk about, hey, Madison, to talk about what she should be doing to get her home ready for sale, because she knew that at some point in the near future. So I'm willing to do that, right? And again, like I've got clients who 5 years ago or so, I went through their home, and that was a client where they were going to do, I think, all of their windows, and they had like an original kitchen. It was a kitchen with metal cabinets, and I said, do your kitchen before you do your windows, was what I told them at that time, right? Like, so that's why it's case by case, right? So it's hard for me to just give a generic answer, but I'm happy to go through your home either in person or virtually. Easier to do it in person, but happy to do it virtually as well if that's what you want to do, to take a look at the home as a whole and give you an opinion on that.
Right.
Does that help?
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome.